Greetings. This is Pastor Mock. If you've been following along, we are at almost the end here of our study in John Downham's book, The Cure for Unjust Anger. We have this episode and then one more, and then we'll be done. And we are in the section in the book in which Downham speaks about remedies to cure unjust anger. And last time we looked at the remedy of avoiding angry people as much as possible. And now we'll consider just a few more remedies. And these are remedies for curing sinful anger in self. And then next time we'll look at the remedy of curing unjust anger, or helping to cure unjust anger in others. So continuing to focus on self and sinful anger that comes from your own heart, we are exhorted by Downham to not feed the fire. He says the first means is to withdraw the fuel that further feeds anger. Continues and he says, the primary way anger is increased is by too much talking, the multiplying of words. Now, he has in mind just the words that are coming out of our mouths. I would include in this words in our thoughts, turning in our minds over and over again the sinful words, excessive speech. And so he says, avoid excessive talking, and we should be avoiding venting. And he goes on, we should not therefore imagine, as some people do, that we can disgorge anger from our stomachs by vomiting out bitter words. For words not only whet and sharpen our own affections, they also provoke the person with whom we are offended to retaliate in the same way, thus adding new matter to the old flame. We can as quickly quench fire with wood as anger with words. For as wood nourishes the fire, so words are the nourishment of anger. So what Downham is speaking out against is something that is very common in today's secular counsel. When somebody comes to a therapist who has, this person has an anger problem, what's one counsel? Just let it all out. Just speak it. And you have the opportunity to vent. Just unleash all of those angry words to a therapist or to a pillow, or pretend that the person is there and speak to that person, unleashing all of your anger. Well, that's not the biblical way. And why, in anyone who has had that problem of venting anger might feel satisfied, at least temporarily, just to get it off his chest. But did that solve the problem? Certainly not. I don't know when venting does solve the problem. It usually adds to the problem, as Downham was saying. It's adding fuel to the fire. So we want to avoid excessive talking. This is not an avoidance of all talk. Obviously, if there is an issue if there's a sinful issue involved, you should be going to your brother and talking with that person about the problem, and doing so in gentleness and in love and respect for that person, seeking understanding. So we don't feed the fire. You will be tempted to feed the fire by continual talk and continual turning of the problem in your mind. And that's not the way forward. The way forward is to go and be reconciled. Another remedy is to restrain yourself from angry outbursts. James 1:20 reminds us the anger of man, this is the sinful anger of man, does not produce the righteousness of God. Because sinful anger is not a godly expression of anger, we need to work hard at restraining ourselves. When we have that temptation to just blow out all of our angry thoughts and words at a person, we need to remember God's call for us to be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to anger. Dunham says, if the injury is a fault today, it will be one tomorrow. In other words, if there's a real issue that needs to be addressed, and it's a sin problem, well, if it's a fault today, if it's a sin problem today, it will be one tomorrow. And it's better for you to wait for the next day or give yourself a period of time to think through the matter. It's better for that to take place than for you just to show your frustration, your disagreement with whatever that issue is by an angry outburst. You're going to hurt people by expressions of anger, and so we need to restrain ourselves. And in the same line here of thinking, it's another verse, James 1:19. We need to stop and think about our anger. Know this, my beloved brothers, let every person be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. Talked about this a lot. One way that we can stop and think is to have a heart journal. Now, this is not unique to me, but this is very common in counseling, to have some kind of journal. This journal can be used in reference to any kind of sinful behavior, thought. You can do one of these with grief, with sinful grief, or with sinful anxiety or impatience, or whatever the case may be. But we're talking about anger here, and the heart journal, if it wasn't created by, it was popularized by Robert Jones in his book Uprooting Anger. And what I would recommend is you have a heart journal for a 2-week period, at least initially, and you might want to continue it after that 2-week time. But what this journal is about is every episode of anger, you record, and you go through 4 steps. The first step is you just summarize what happened in a sentence or 2. Kid hit me my brother hit me in the face. Person cut me off in traffic. Wife didn't have dinner on time. Husband didn't demonstrate any care to spend time with me last night. Whatever the issue is, you summarize, this is what happened. Just the facts in step 1. Step 2 is your behavior. And so what did you say in response to the circumstance? In response to what the person said or did? What did you say? What did you do? How did you feel in response to what had happened? So again, you have the external circumstance, and then the second step is your response to that circumstance, your response in your behavior, in your words, in your feelings. Step 3 is you write down your thoughts and desires. What did you want in that situation that you did not get? Or what did you get in that situation that you did not want? Maybe you didn't get the dinner on time in your mind. Your expectation was to have it at 6 p.m. and it was at 6:30. And uh, what were you thinking? What what was your desire? What were you wanting in the midst of the situation? And so this third step is an opportunity for you to dig deep, just to go beyond the level of your behavior, but to enter the level of the heart. That's why it's called a heart journal. What were your attitudes? What were your thoughts, your desires, your motives that may have driven that wrong behavior? There are a number of felt needs or assumed rights that we assign to ourselves, we attribute to ourselves. Maybe you wanted privacy. Maybe you wanted to be free of intense problems or pressures. Maybe you desired friends or close relationship. You wanted to be loved and accepted. You wanted to be understood. You wanted to be cared for. You wanted to be able to plan your future. You wanted good health. You wanted to date or marry. You wanted to be sexually fulfilled. You wanted children. You want to be successful in your job, your family, your church. You want a satisfying employment. You want to enjoy your job. You want a day off from work. You want to just be served rather than to serve. You wanted to be treated fairly. You wanted to have fun. You wanted to just relax. You wanted to be protected. And so there are a lot of desires here that underlie certain behaviors. What did you want? And notice that most of those desires are not wrong in themselves. We've talked about the reason for quarreling is that we have passions that are at war within us. And sometimes those desires are sinful desires. Sometimes those desires are not sinful in themselves. They're good things to desire, to pursue. But when we end up sinning to get them, or we end up sinning because we didn't get them, well, then we've desired them inordinately, excessively. And then the fourth part of the journal, after you've identified your heart motives, your desires, your attitudes, is to answer what God would have wanted you to do. What should you have done in that situation that you were sinfully angry? And what does he call you to now? Maybe you need to confess your sin because you blew up in anger. What does he call you to do now? And if you do that over a period of a couple weeks, you're going to be more mindful of how you of your habits that are coming from heart desires. That's going to help you diagnose the problem better. Instead of just saying, well, I wish I didn't have an anger problem, you'll be more mindful, and then you can attack the sinful thoughts. You can attack your sinful motives. And of course, you cannot do this apart from the Holy Spirit. So the last remedy for curing unjust anger in self is to pray for the Holy Spirit's help. I'm thinking of the fruit of the Spirit. You cannot be simultaneously angry, sinfully so, and have self-control. You cannot be angry and have love for others. You cannot be angry and have a gentle spirit. You cannot be angry and have peace and a desire to promote peace. You can't be simultaneously angry and patient with another. You cannot be simultaneously angry and kind towards another. You cannot be simultaneously angry and full of thanksgiving to God and for that person. All of these fruit of the Spirit are opposed to sinful anger. And so we need to pray that God would cultivate in us that fruit, that harvest of righteousness. These are some remedies, and with God's help and with our concerted effort to mortify the flesh, to put the flesh to death and to live into righteousness, we will see greater success as we handle our anger. And it's my prayer that you will achieve that success by the power of the Spirit, as you are driven to Christ in His Word. Thanks for sticking with me. We have one more episode next time. See you then. Bye-bye.